1 3/4. Soybean meal down 8.40 a ton at 345.80. June live cattle closed down 32 cents at 122.82. August down 25 at 122.62. August feeders up 145 at 157.15. September up 112 at 159.20. July lean hogs down the 450 limit to close at $100.02, and August down 202 at 98.70. From the farm desk, I'm Dwayne Murley.
Yeah, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. It's my extreme pleasure. I want to talk extreme pleasure. A feeling that I haven't had since I was doing cocaine in the 70s. Dr. Peter Fisher is here.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, how you doing? You were in Iowa City in the 70s. Did we ever do coke together? I don't remember the 70s.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Think so. Okay. Well, we missed out then.
You're making me think of the John Prine song. You may see me tonight with an illegal smile. It don't cost very much, but it lasts a long while.
I was a huge fan of John Prine. I really was. We haven't talked to Dr. Peter Fisher for a while. He is a professor emeritus at the University of Iowa. He's an economist, and we're here to talk about the Great Train Robbery. No, we're here to talk about federal funds sent to Iowa. Now, I infuriate my farmer friends by saying that Iowa has always been a socialist state, mainly because of farm programs in the past. But my farmer friends tell me, and upon investigation, I've discovered they're absolutely right, is we don't have nearly the federal farm programs in Iowa that we used to. Is that the truth?
I have not followed that, but they aren't the same, that's for sure.
No,
I don't know about the total amount of money.
Well, since we got into global agriculture, and the price of grain went up so high, I don't know if there's the need anymore. You know, by the way, I was okay with Iowa being a socialist state. I had no problem with it. They just didn't like to hear it. You know.
Right.
Anyway, what is the state of federal funds coming to Iowa? What does that look like?
Well, the latest legislation that was passed a couple of months ago, the American Rescue Plan, floated money for a variety of purposes, including about $1.4 billion to the state of Iowa for a variety of purposes. And, you know, we got about an $8 billion a year budget of the general fund. So $1.4 billion is a pretty big chunk of money compared to the total budget of the state. And that's over a 3-year period, but it's still a sizable amount of money with a lot of flexibility in how we might spend it.
So what did we do to deserve this much money from the federal government? I mean, Kim Reynolds turned back some money for federal unemployment support. I mean, federal dollars for unemployment support, because apparently her big ag buddies who contribute to her campaign wanted to keep people working at $7.25 an hour. I've really got my socialist cap on today, I guess. So what is the purpose of this money? What did we do to deserve this money?
We didn't do anything. We just had...
oh, come on. We're virtuous and we're good looking.
We had 3 million people, and the formula said, okay, you get $1.4 billion. So it was just a pretty much across-the-board allocation on population. No, you didn't have to swear allegiance to the president to get any money or anything like that.
Oh, shot at Trump now. Liberal, Iowa City liberal. Yeah, there it is.
I didn't say.
Oh, yeah. Trump? Oh, yes. Now, who, me? What do you mean my hand's in the cookie jar? Oh, okay. I didn't say anything. We got to get you out of Iowa City and bring you up here to Fort Dodge for a couple of weeks. This is real man country.
Yeah, okay.
And everybody down there, looks studious.
Oh.
Which works for a while, but after a while, it's truly boring. Well, yeah, if it's $1.8 billion over 3 years, how much money am I going to get? Not that I'm selfish.
Oh, I don't think you might. I don't know. You might not see any of that. I don't know. So
who
far,
gets it all then?
Well, we don't know. The legislature knew about all this money, and they didn't even talk about it. They didn't even think about it. All they did was set up a fund that says, okay, we're going to name this fund whatever it is, and there's where the money is going to go. And Governor have fun with it, spend it however you want. We don't care. So that's pretty much what they did with the money last year.
Well, I think they could, send me 5,000 or 10,000 then and tell me that. I'd have a perfectly good time with it.
Well, you got to go to the governor and ask for it, I guess.
Well, I will. I have her number. We'll see what she says. Somehow, I don't think it's going to be in the affirmative, but anyway. So, other states got these sorts of grants, I take it.
Yeah, right. Every state has their allocation, and some of them are doing radical things like the legislatures having the voice and how it's spent since they control the budget. States are setting up hearings on how the money ought to be spent, or having public forums about how the money should be spent. But we don't seem to be doing any of that. We're just going to leave it to the gov to shell out the money as she sees fit.
I was sure when I asked you that question, you were going to say something like, well, other states are going to do different things. Now, the really stupid states are going to build a wall. But I didn't say anything about Trump, but the real moron states are going to build a wall.
I don't think so.
Is this something that's done regularly? Just give a bunch of money to the governor? Because I have a feeling that Kim Reynolds isn't going to give me any.
Well, that's pretty much what they did with a year ago with the coronavirus relief fund, which is $1.25 billion. The legislature did the same thing. They just let the governor decide how to spend it. And she spent 40% of it to shore up the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund, which sounds like a good idea since we were spending a lot of money on unemployment insurance. But
yeah.
The main effect of it really is not that workers' benefits were threatened. It's that employers' unemployment insurance tax rates were threatened. So what that did was make sure the tax rates they pay into the unemployment insurance system don't go up. So I wouldn't be surprised if you did the same thing with some of this money.
Wait. Don't. Okay.
Okay.
So we propped up the unemployment system, and by that you mean we gave a break to business, which has to pay into the unemployment system?
Yes, they pay in, and it's based on their experience. In other words, if a business has a history of laying off a lot of people, they're going to pay a higher tax rate into the insurance plan. It's like your insurance premiums would go up if you routinely, accidentally set fire to your house. They're going to start charging more for fire insurance. Well, so during the pandemic, we were drawing down a lot on the fund, and whenever it gets below a certain level, then it has to be built back up again. And the way they do that is to raise the unemployment insurance tax rates for everybody. So we could have gotten a loan from the federal government to tide us over a couple of years, interest-free, but no, we just put the money right in there to make sure tax rates on business didn't go up.
I kind of thought that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that sort of thing, businesses paying to an unemployment compensation fund, do you consider that a tax? Is that what it's known as?
Well, it's called a tax, but it's an insurance premium is what it is. I mean, you're paying into a fund, and we have this collective system of paying for people who are out of work. And a lot of times it's not any fault of the worker or the employer. When we have a pandemic and close down restaurants and bars and a bunch of other businesses, it's not their fault. So it's a social responsibility to make people at least partially whole. But, and then, yeah, like you said, then she ended all the additional unemployment programs that the federal government was supporting, which at the time in early June was about half of all the unemployment benefits going to the state were these additional payments for people who own small businesses or people who are out of work for a long period of time. And that all disappeared. And it took a lot of money out of the Iowa economy. It was federal money coming in here that people were getting and spending and helping to support Main Street businesses with their spending. But we didn't need that. We need workers who are willing to work for $7.25 an hour.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them will say I pay 10 or 12 or 15 or whatever, but that's for pretty heavy work
Sure.
sometimes in some pretty rough facilities, I'll tell you. No, that never really gets talked about much. That's why I was glad when I saw I was going to get to talk with you after quite a long time of you not being on the air. But all of the things the Republicans do are to increase the cost of doing business, not increase, but decrease the cost of doing business for business, but it doesn't help their workers at all. As a matter of fact, it's a detriment to them. And that could only over time. And Iowa wasn't like this when I was young. We have many, many, many poor areas in Iowa now. I'm not just talking about the little farm towns who probably outlived their usefulness. But I'm talking in Waterloo. Fort Dodge is a poor town. I think we could admit that. There's big areas of Sioux City all over the place that are very poor. That's because they're not paid much for working. And the idea that then we have to force them to work by starving them to death is kind of immoral in my way of thinking. But I'm just a lonely voice on the radio, Peter, just a tough guy in a tough job in a little town, I'm pretty dramatic, aren't I?
Well, you don't understand, Mike. It's just a matter of perception. That's why the first thing the governor announced he was going to do with the American Rescue Plan funds was to launch a multi-million-dollar public relations campaign to sell people on the idea of coming to Iowa to work.
I understand public perception, Peter, believe me. and I've seen Watch the Birdie many times. So in fact, it's still part of what we do politically. Pay no attention to your poverty. Look at the shiny flag over here.
Yeah.
No,
right.
I don't do that. I don't. And I complain mostly about the Democrats and their abdication as the party of the working people. We'll never get anything done with the minimum wage or right to work law in Iowa as long as the Democratic Party is corporately owned. It's bad enough we have a corporately owned Republican Party, but here I am talking politics to an economist. Sorry, Peter.
So, a couple of things that when this legislative session started, that it looked like might happen because it had the support not just of liberal advocacy groups, but the business community. One of them was we need more affordable workforce housing. The business people were saying our workers can't find a place to live that they can afford, and they said we need more childcare. There's people in parts of Iowa that don't have access to childcare, or they have access. They can get there, but when they arrive, they find out that the child care provider doesn't take the state reimbursement rate that they'd be eligible for because it's too low. So we thought we were going to do something about those two problems, or some people did, but very little got done. Nothing serious on either of those issues. Just they'll brag about the little bits of legislation they did do, but they didn't do anything to seriously attack either of those issues. And those are both things that we could be using those ARP funds for. We could fund a program to subsidize give credits for people to build more affordable housing. We could use those funds to make it easier for people to access affordable child care. So we'll be waiting to see if that's what they do, but I'm not very hopeful.
Well, God forbid we ever do anything about wage theft, which happens in Iowa all the time. Most business people, and I really do believe this, and I know this, most business people are honest and straightforward in their dealings with their employees. But there's a certain percentage out there that will just rip these people right off. And there should be some sort of state action that can be taken on behalf of those who have endured wage theft. A lot of times they're just poor people, as we've been talking about, and the poor people in Iowa have never, since the time of churches, since churches got out of the business, poor people have never really been discussed. They're used as a prop every now and then for somebody who wants to look good. Oh, I'm doing something for the poor. Yeah, right. But
No, we do very little about that. I mean, for a state this size, we hardly have any staff to speak of assigned to enforcing wages and hours violations. So a lot of it, or probably most of it, goes unreported, and they just keep on doing it. They
yes, they do, and
make you work off the clock. They charge you, make you work overtime and don't pay time and a half, etc. There's a lot of things they don't do, or they just plain underpay you. Yeah.
I'm going to charge you for your uniforms now that you're quitting with my business logo on them. That's my favorite one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what am I supposed to do with a shirt and pants that got your business logo all over them? Well, I'm just going to do it because I can get away with it. That's really the answer.
Right.
It's there's no one ever wants to talk about the occasional immorality of capitalism. They want to talk about the wonderful and good things, and I would agree that there are wonderful and good things that come about as a result of a capitalist economic system. But there are also some total rip-off artists that we just can't see. I mean, it's like refusing to see the water tower in one of our little towns in Iowa. Water tower, where's that at? Don't see it. My God. Or Kinnick Stadium. I'm in Iowa City. Can't find Kinnick. I don't know where it is. I mean, come on. And I've been talking seriously with my Republican friends, and I admire them. Senator Tim Kreinbrink is a fine man, and Representative Ann Meyer. And I can't think of Ann or Tim doing this, but some Republicans are always talking about all the good they've done as far as gun control is concerned in the state of Iowa. And you and I would never agree on this, but as far as I'm concerned, yeah, what the legislature did this year was good as far as keeping the liberals' hands off our guns. But that's really something that's a fight we shouldn't have had to fight in the first place. And frankly, it doesn't pay the rent when you get right down to it. It doesn't make my car payment or put any money in my pocket. So I'm going to ask you one more time here, Peter. With all these federal dollars coming from Iowa, am I going to get to buy my grandkids a couple extra Christmas presents because of these federal funds?
No, you can do that out of your let's see, if you got one of those stimulus checks.
Stimulus.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I said, cocaine and talking to you are my two biggest stimulants in the last 40 years, 45 years. But
Yeah.
is there, I'm glad you brought that up. There's a rumor there's going to be yet another stimulus check. Is that right?
I had not heard that. I would kind of be surprised, but
I would be too. The Republicans are just rolling around on the ground like some terrible thing has happened. Socialism is coming over the hill there. I'm walking down a dark street, and socialism is going to jump out of the alley and get me. It's absolute insanity. But politics is as it has always been. When I sold cars, and I was a pretty good car salesman, Peter, believe it or not. When I sold cars, the idea was to present a problem, present a crisis, and present yourself as the savior. And they're still, I mean, Joe Biden does it, the Republicans do it. Politicians, as far back as I can remember, have been doing just that, creating a crisis and presenting themselves as the savior of the universe. But, I've grown so cynical, that's all I can say is, yeah, right. I don't. I applaud you for still hanging in there and try to explain some of these things. Are we missing anything, Peter? Fisher? What kind of?
Well, yeah. There's a little hope on the horizon in the sense of federal legislation. If the state doesn't end up really tackling businesses are complaining they can't get workers, but we can't get anything done in terms of how can you afford to go to work for even 10 or 12 bucks an hour, given the cost of childcare, and we won't do anything about that. But there was a proposal at the federal level, the American Families Plan, that would do a whole lot for childcare. So maybe, guess how it's funded? It's funded by taxing the top about 0.5% of the population, the millionaires who get off without paying paying very low tax on capital gains. And with that, you could fund child care for everybody in the country where you wouldn't have to pay more than 7% of your income for child care. And lo and behold, that would no longer be an impediment for workers, and we might not have such a worker shortage in the state.
Now, there's an idea, but let's not let that word get out. Dr. Peter Fisher has been our guest and is our economist emeritus at the University of Iowa. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Okay. This is AM 1400 KVFD, The Voice, Fort Dodge 259.
Grief is a natural part of life. As hard as it is, we must find ways through it and not around it.